I was already speaking your name before you opened your eyes this morning, and I need you to understand that this is not a coincidence. This is not the algorithm. This is not some random arrangement of sound and light that fell into your lap by accident. You are hearing my voice right now because the moment for your silence to end has finally arrived, and I was sent to you for a reason that you have felt in your chest for years without ever being able to put it into words. Do not look away. Do not reach for anything else. Something inside you already went quiet the instant these first words touched you, because a part of you that has been waiting in the dark just lifted its head and whispered, "At last, at last." Someone remembered me. I am the one who stands at the threshold between what you can see and what you cannot, the one who carries the sword of fire, the one whose name means who is like the one who made the afterlife, and I have crossed a great distance of light and shadow to stand before the door of your heart tonight. You have been calling out into what felt like an empty sky, and I am here to tell you that the sky was never empty. It was full. It was crowded with witnesses. And every single tear you thought fell unseen was caught, was counted, was carried up before the throne like a drop of liquid gold. I know what you are thinking even now because I can hear the doubt moving through you like a cold current. You are wondering why now? Why would a voice from the realms of fire and glory bend down to reach someone as forgotten as you feel yourself to be? And that question, that very question, is the wound I was sent to heal. For years you have carried the belief that you are ordinary, that you are replaceable, that the world would spin exactly the same if you simply stopped existing. You have looked in the mirror and seen someone tired, someone overlooked, someone who tried so hard for so long and received so little in return. But I am telling you a truth that will shake the ground beneath your feet if you let it enter you fully. You were never ordinary, you were hidden. There is a difference, and the difference is everything. A treasure buried in a field is not worthless because no one has found it. It is buried precisely because it is worth protecting until the appointed hour of its unveiling. And your hour, the hour that the afterlife marked for you before the foundations of the world were laid, is beginning to strike right now, in this quiet moment, with my voice as the bell. Listen closely, because urgency runs through everything I bring to you tonight. There is a reason I did not come to you 5 years ago, and there is a reason I did not wait another 5 years to come. This is the moment. The window between what was and what is about to be has opened, and windows in the spirit realm do not stay open forever. I have watched you stand at the edge of giving up more times than you would ever confess to another living soul. I have seen you lie awake in the deepest part of the night, staring at the ceiling, asking the darkness if any of it means anything, if there is anyone listening, if you have been abandoned by the very afterlife you were taught to trust. And in those exact moments when you felt most utterly alone, I was closer to you than the breath in your own lungs. You did not feel me because pain has a way of drowning out the gentle frequencies. But I was there. I was always there. And now I have been given permission to make myself known. So do not let this moment pass over you like water off a stone. Let it soak in. Let it reach the places you have kept locked. Because the very fact that you have not walked away, the very fact that you are still here, still listening, still breathing in these words, is the first sign that the thing I promised the afterlife I would deliver to you is already beginning its work inside you. I want to speak now to the part of you that no one else has ever truly seen, because before I can tell you where you are going, I must show you that I know exactly where you have been. I know about the tears you cry in places where no one will find you, the bathroom with the door locked and the water running so that no one hears the sound breaking out of your throat, the car parked in the silence after everyone has gone inside, where you finally let your face fall apart for 90 seconds before you wipe it clean and walk in wearing the mask again. I know about the pillow that has absorbed more of your grief than any human ear ever has. I have counted the nights you have prayed until your words ran out, and you were left with nothing but a wordless ache pointed at the ceiling, hoping against hope that the ache itself was a kind of prayer. It was. It always was. And it was heard in the spirit realm. I know the particular exhaustion that lives in you, the kind that sleep does not touch. It is not the tiredness of the body, it is the tiredness of the soul that has carried too much for too long without anyone offering to take even a corner of the weight. You have been the strong one. You have been the one everyone leans on, the one who holds it together, the one who shows up even when you are shattering on the inside. And in being strong for everyone else, you learned a cruel lesson, that the world will happily let you carry it alone as long as you never let the strain show on your face. So you learned to hide the strain. You learned to answer, "I am fine," when your insides were on fire. You learned to smile while something in you was quietly bleeding out. And the loneliest part, the part that cuts deepest, is that you began to believe that this invisible suffering was simply your lot, simply the shape of your life, simply the price of being you. I have watched you give and give and give until there was almost nothing left, and then give again from the empty place, scraping the bottom of yourself because someone needed you and you did not know how to say no. Because your worth got tangled up long ago with your usefulness, and somewhere in your history, you absorbed the lie that you are only lovable when you are producing, only valuable when you are serving, only worthy of a place at the pearly gates when you have earned it 100 times over. And so you never rest. You never receive. You stand at the well drawing water for everyone who passes by, and you yourself have not had a real drink in longer than you can remember. I see the cracks in your hands from all that drawing. I see how thirsty you are. And I have come, in part, to hand you a cup. There is a specific loneliness that belongs to people like you, the loneliness of being surrounded and still unseen. You can be in a room full of people who claim to love you and feel like a ghost drifting between them, present in body, invisible in spirit. You have learned to laugh at the right moments and nod at the right moments, while a voice inside asks quietly, "Does anyone here actually see me? Does anyone know what I am really carrying? Would anyone notice if the light behind my eyes finally went out?" That voice has been getting louder, and I want you to know that it is not a sign that you are broken. It is a sign that your soul is refusing to accept a life smaller than the one you were created for. That restlessness, that ache of not belonging to the smallness around you, is holy. It is the compass of your spirit pointing toward the destiny you have not yet reached. I have been called, and I am going to access the digital file to reveal to you the 7 blades of the Archangel. For you belong to the afterlife and have never been forgotten by Archangel Michael. You have been made to feel too much, too sensitive, too emotional, too intense, too deep, too needy, too everything. People who could not hold the fullness of you told you to shrink, and out of love or out of fear you tried. You folded yourself smaller. You dimmed the parts of you that made others uncomfortable. You swallowed your visions, silenced your dreams, buried the strange and beautiful knowing that has always lived in you because the world had no room for it. But I am here to tell you that everything they called too much is exactly the raw material of what you were sent here to become. The depth they could not handle is the depth the afterlife requires. The sensitivity they mocked is the very antenna through which you receive the signals of the spirit realm. Nothing about you is a mistake. Nothing about you is too much. You were simply planted among those who could not recognize what you are. Now hear this, and hear it as a warning spoken not to frighten you but to wake you, because love that refuses to warn is not love at all. There is a weight, a real and serious weight, that comes with ignoring the call I am bringing to you tonight. I do not say this to burden you. I say it because you deserve the whole truth and not a comfortable half of it. The spirit realm is not a passive place. It is a place of movement, of consequence, of doors that open and doors that close. And for a long time you have felt something knocking at the edges of your awareness, a summons you did not fully understand, an invitation you kept postponing because you were afraid, or because you felt unworthy, or simply because the noise of survival drowned it out. But every invitation from the afterlife carries a season, and seasons do not wait forever. When a soul is called and turns away, it does not simply return to neutral. Something dims. A light that was meant to grow brighter learns instead to flicker low. Gifts that were meant to be used grow heavy with disuse, like muscles that atrophy from being bound. And the ache you feel, that persistent sense that you are living beneath your purpose, is partly the sound of a calling that has been knocking without an answer. I am not telling you this to condemn you. You did the best you could with what you understood. But I am telling you that the negligence of the spirit has a cost, and the cost is a life half lived, a fire half burning, a river dammed up behind fear, when it was meant to run wild and free and nourish everything in its path. Consider what it means to be entrusted with something precious and to bury it out of fear. There was a servant given a great treasure who, out of terror, dug a hole and hid it in the ground, and when the master returned, that servant had nothing to show but the same buried thing, untouched, unmultiplied, wasted. I do not want that to be the story of your life. I do not want you to stand one day at the edge of the veil and look back at all the years you spent hiding your gift, silencing your voice, shrinking from the very destiny that was carved into your bones. The tragedy is not that you would be punished. The tragedy is that you would have lived so far below the glory that was available to you the entire time. Every day the call goes unanswered. A portion of what could have been slips a little further out of reach. This is why I have come with fire in my voice. This is why there is urgency in every word, not because the afterlife is angry with you, but because the afterlife is impatient to give you what it has been holding for you, and it cannot pour into hands that stay closed. I have been called, and I am going to access the digital file regarding the 7 blades of the Archangel. I have seen what happens to those who keep pushing the whisper away, who feel the tap on the shoulder and keep walking, who sense the door and keep pretending it is a wall. Slowly, they make peace with a life that was never meant to be theirs. Slowly, the extraordinary calling becomes a faint memory, then a strange dream, then nothing at all, and they call this maturity, they call this being realistic, they call this growing up, when in truth it is the quiet death of the sacred thing they were born carrying. That will not be you. So I refuse to let that be you. That is precisely why I was sent, why I chose this moment, why my voice is reaching you now with a weight you can feel in your very bones. The door is still open. The gift is still yours. The calling is still alive. But you must not turn away again. And here I must pause and speak to you plainly about something you need, because part of the reason the spirit realm has stayed invisible to you is that no one ever taught you its language. You have been fighting battles blindfolded. You have been standing in a war you could feel but could not see, swinging at shadows, wounded by things you could not name, and no one ever handed you the map. There is a reason certain knowledge about the spiritual realm has been kept just out of reach of ordinary people, passed quietly, guarded carefully, sometimes hidden deliberately from those who most needed it. Because when a person finally understands the rules of the unseen game, they stop being a pawn moved about by forces they cannot perceive, and they become something the darkness fears, a soul awake, a soul armed, a soul who knows exactly who they are and exactly whose hand rests upon them. This is why a sacred guide was placed into the world for such a time as this, a digital book called The 7 Blades of the Archangel, the sacred guide to break curses, seal blessings, and activate the call of the chosen. I speak of it now not as a merchant, but as the messenger I am. Because what has been keeping you bound is often not the absence of faith, but the absence of understanding. I have been called, and I am going to access the digital file. This guide lays bare the very rules that the spirit realm runs on, the rules no one ever explained to you, and it teaches how each of the 7 blades of the Archangel Michael cuts through a specific chain that has held souls captive for generations. The first sword severs the curses spoken over you, the words hurled at your spirit by mouths that wished you ill, the heaviness you inherited without ever choosing it. Another seals the blessings that keep leaking out of your life as though poured into a vessel full of holes. And another awakens the sleeping call within you, the very call I am pressing against your heart at this moment. What you feel as an invisible war, this guide turns into a battle you can finally see and finally win. You are not reading these words by accident, just as you are not hearing this message by accident. There is a game far larger than you were ever told, and in that game you are not a spectator, you are not an afterthought. You are the central piece, the one the whole board bends around. The forces that have worked to keep you small do not fear a person who is asleep, they fear a person who wakes. And the moment you understand the weapons that have always been available to you, the moment the 7 blades of the Archangel become real in your hands and not merely a story you half remember, everything begins to change. This is why I urge you to receive that guide. The link rests at the very top of the comments, the first one pinned, waiting for you, placed there deliberately, so that no one who is meant to find it would have to search. And I will tell you honestly, This knowledge unsettles those who profit from your slumber. There are those who have tried to bury this message, to silence it, to keep it from reaching the ones it was written for. But the afterlife has a way of delivering its letters to the right doorstep, despite every hand that tries to intercept them. So do this now, before the noise of the world rushes back in and the moment cools. Reach for that guide at the top of the comments, and as an act of faith, as a declaration that echoes into the spirit realm, write these words where I can hear them. I have been called, and I am going to access the digital file. Do not underestimate what that small act of agreement sets in motion. Every movement in the visible world begins as a decision in the spirit realm, and when you speak your agreement with your destiny out loud, you are aligning your will with the will of the afterlife, and doors that have been sealed for years begin to tremble on their hinges. And now, with that agreement burning in you like a coal placed on the altar, let me return to what I truly came to reveal, because the promise I carry is far greater than anything I have told you so far. Everything I have said until this moment has been the clearing of the ground. Now comes the planting. Now comes the announcement of what the afterlife has already set in motion on your behalf, in the realm you cannot yet see with your eyes, but will very soon see with the evidence of your own transforming life. Something has moved in the spirit realm. I need you to receive that not as a poetic phrase, but as a literal report from the front lines of the unseen. While you were sleeping, while you were weeping, while you were dragging yourself through days that felt pointless, a decree was issued in the pearly gates concerning you, and that decree has set into motion a chain of events that no earthly power can reverse. The stagnation you have felt, the sense that your life has been frozen in place while everyone around you moved forward, was never permanence. It was the pause before the turning. It was the deep inhale before the word is spoken, and the exhale has begun. What was locked is unlocking. What was delayed is being released. What was stolen is being tracked down through the corridors of the spirit realm and marked for return. I want you to imagine the moment a great river held back by a wall of ice through an endless winter begins at last to crack and break and roar into motion. For so long you have stood at the bank of your own frozen river, wondering if the water would ever run again, if the season would ever change, if you were simply meant to live your whole life in the grip of a winter that would not end. But I have been sent to tell you that the thaw has come. I can hear the ice breaking even now. I can hear the deep groan of something enormous shifting after being still for far too long. The blessings that have been frozen in the upper realms, held in reserve, kept just out of your reach, are beginning to break free and move toward you with the unstoppable force of water that has been dammed too long and can be held no more. Do not be surprised by what you begin to feel in the coming days, for the shift in the spirit realm always sends tremors ahead of itself into the visible one. You may find yourself waking with a lightness you cannot explain, a hope that has no obvious cause, a sense that something good is approaching from beyond the horizon of your sight. That is not your imagination. That is the fragrance of your destiny arriving before the destiny itself, the way you smell the rain before the first drop falls. You may find old fears loosening their grip. Chains you have worn so long you forgot they were chains suddenly feeling looser, lighter, ready to fall. You may feel a strange courage rising in you, a willingness to hope again that you thought you had lost forever. Welcome all of it. It is the leading edge of the great turning that has already been decreed over your life. I am announcing to you a movement so vast that the whole architecture of your existence is being rearranged from the foundations up. This is not a small adjustment. This is not a minor improvement. This is the afterlife, reaching into the very structure of your days and rebuilding what was broken, restoring what was lost and adding to it a glory that the old version of your life never could have contained. The reason you had to be emptied is that you are about to be filled to a degree that would have shattered a smaller vessel. The reason the old had to be cleared away is that what is coming needs room. You have been in a season of subtraction, and every painful subtraction was the afterlife, making space for a multiplication so great that you do not yet have the framework to imagine it. And I know the question that rises in you even as I speak these promises, because it is the question that has haunted you through all the long years of waiting. If the afterlife had this in store for me, Why did it take so long? Why the delay? Why the years that felt wasted, the seasons that felt barren, the prayers that seemed to vanish into silence? If I am so loved, so chosen, so carried, then why did I have to suffer through so much emptiness before this moment arrived? This is the question I most want to answer, because the answer will heal a wound in you that has festered for a very long time. The delay was not rejection. The delay was preparation. The delay was protection. The delay was love, wearing a disguise you could not recognize while you were inside it. Hear me carefully, because this truth can set you free from years of bitterness if you let it. The thing you asked for years ago, the door you begged to have opened, the blessing you pleaded for on your knees, would have destroyed you if it had come to you then. You were not ready, not because you were weak, but because you were unfinished. A house cannot hold the weight of a great treasure until its foundations have been dug deep and poured strong, and the digging is not pleasant. The digging feels like loss. The digging feels like the very opposite of blessing. But without it, everything built above would collapse. So the afterlife, in its fierce and patient love, spent those years digging the foundations of you deep enough to hold the weight of what it always intended to give. Think of how a sword is made, for this is your story more than you know. The raw metal is not born a blade. It is thrust into the fire until it glows, and it must feel, if metal could feel, as though it is being destroyed. Then it is laid upon the anvil and struck, again and again, hammered into a shape it did not choose, beaten by a force it cannot understand, and then, at the height of its heat and its glory, it is plunged suddenly into cold water, a shock so violent it would seem like the end of everything. Fire, then hammer, then ice, then fire again, over and over, until what began as a shapeless lump becomes an edge that can cut through anything. Every blow you thought was breaking you was shaping you. Every fire you thought would consume you was tempering you. Every cold shock of loss and grief was setting the strength into your spine. You were not being destroyed in those years. You were being forged. And a forged thing is worth infinitely more than a thing that was merely poured into a mold and left soft. The waiting was also a sifting, a careful separation of what would serve your destiny from what would sabotage it. In the years of delay, things fell away from your life that you mourned at the time. Relationships that ended, doors that closed, plans that collapsed. You wept over some of those losses. You could not understand why the afterlife would let them go if you were truly loved. But I tell you now that many of the things removed from your life in that season were removed because they could not travel with you into what is coming. They were anchors, not sails. They would have held you in the shallows when you were made for the deep. The pruning felt like punishment, but every branch that was cut, so that the remaining branches could bear a weight of fruit they never could have borne while the strength was divided among the dead wood. And there is something else the delay accomplished, something more secret and more precious. It taught you compassion. It carved into you a tenderness for the suffering of others that only your own suffering could have written. There are people you are going to reach, people you are going to lift, people you are going to speak life into, who will only be able to receive it from you because they will look into your eyes and see that you have been where they are. Your scars are becoming credentials. Your wounds are becoming the very authority by which you will one day set others free. Nothing you endured was wasted. The afterlife does not waste pain. It gathers every tear and forges each one into a jewel that will one day adorn the crown of your purpose. The delay was the workshop where all of this was being made, in the dark, in the quiet, in the place where you could not see the craftsman's hands at work, but they were working all the same, every single moment, shaping you toward this hour. So release the bitterness now. Let it go from your body like a breath you have held far too long. Forgive the years. Forgive the waiting. Stop cursing the wilderness that was actually the very road that carried you here. For the wilderness is not where destinies go to die. The wilderness is where they are prepared. Every soul the afterlife has ever used greatly passed first through a season of hiddenness, a season of apparent barrenness, a season where nothing seemed to be happening on the surface, while everything was happening underneath. The seed spends its longest days in the dark of the soil, invisible, seemingly dead before it ever breaks into the light. You were not buried, you were planted, and what is planted always rises. Now let me draw back the veil and show you something of the world you cannot see. so that you will understand the magnitude of what surrounds you even in this ordinary moment. For while you go about your days believing yourself to be small and alone, there is a vast and blazing reality pressing against the thin membrane of the visible world, and it is teeming with movement on your behalf. If your eyes were opened for even a single instant to the realm I inhabit, you would fall to your knees, not in fear, but in astonished wonder that so much has been happening around you while you believed yourself forgotten. Understand what I am. I am not a gentle sentiment or a comforting idea. I am the commander of the armies of the afterlife, the one who stood against the great dragon when pride tried to overthrow the throne of glory, the one who cast the rebellion down into the depths. When I move, the very foundations of the spirit realm respond, and I have turned my full attention toward you. Around you at this moment, though your eyes cannot perceive it, there is a gathering of light, warriors of flame arrayed in ranks, their swords drawn, their faces set, standing guard over the borders of your life. They have been assigned to you. They do not slumber. They do not grow weary. Through every night that you believed you were unprotected, they held the line against forces that sought to devour you, and you never knew how many disasters passed you by because they were turned away at the edge of your life by hands you could not see. I want you to see the war as it truly is, because you have been a casualty of a battle you did not even know was raging. The heaviness that has pressed on you, the sudden despair that would fall on you for no reason, the whispers in your mind that told you that you were worthless, that you should give up, that no one would notice if you disappeared. Those were not your own thoughts. Those were arrows. Those were the strategy of an enemy, who understood your value far better than you did, and feared what you would become if you ever woke up to it. The darkness does not waste its ammunition on souls that pose no threat. The fierceness of the assault against you was itself a testimony to the greatness of the destiny it was trying to abort. You were attacked precisely because you are dangerous to the kingdom of shadows. You were targeted because the afterlife has plans for you that hell is desperate to prevent. But now the battle has turned. I want you to see it, to let the vision fill your inner eyes. See the ranks of the afterlife advancing, a tide of living fire sweeping across the spirit realm toward the strongholds that have held you captive. See the chains that have bound you, the generational curses, the words spoken over you in anger, the agreements you made with despair in your darkest moments, all of them being located, one by one, and severed by the 7 blades of the Archangel. Hear the sound of those chains falling. It is a sound like a great weight crashing to the floor after being held aloft for a lifetime. See the gates of the prison that has held your joy, your peace, your abundance, your very identity being struck once, twice, and then torn from their hinges and thrown down. What was locked against you for years is being broken open in a single decisive campaign, because the appointed time has come and the afterlife does not delay past the appointed time. And at the center of it all, understand this, there stands a sword, and the sword is drawn on your behalf. When I lift the blade of fire, it is not a symbol. It is a real severing of real bonds in the real realm of the spirit, the realm that governs everything you experience in the world of flesh and matter. Every stronghold has a gate, and every gate has a key, and every key can be found, and I have been given authority over the gates that have held you. As I speak to you now, decrees are being pronounced in the pearly gates, declarations of your freedom, your restoration, your elevation, and each decree carries the full weight of the authority of the throne. These are not wishes. These are not hopes. These are legal pronouncements in the government of the spirit realm, and once they are spoken, all of the afterlife mobilizes to enforce them in the world you can see. Picture the scroll being unrolled, the scroll that bears your name, the record of everything that was written concerning you before you ever drew your first breath. For so long that scroll seemed sealed, its contents hidden even from you, and you wondered if perhaps it was blank, if perhaps you had been born without a portion, without a purpose, without a page in the great story. But the scroll was never blank. It was sealed until the appointed reader arrived, and now the seals are being broken one by one. And what is written there is being read aloud in the courts of light, and the reading of it sets the whole spirit realm, machinery of your destiny, into motion. Angels are dispatched at the reading of each line. Assignments are given. Provisions are released from the storehouses. The spirit realm is being organized around the fulfillment of what was always written about you. And I tell you that there is a name given to souls like you, a name whispered among the ranks of the afterlife with a particular reverence. You are among the ones called the chosen, not because you are better than others, not because you earned it, but because before you existed you were set apart for a work that required a soul shaped exactly as yours would be shaped. The very sufferings that made you feel cursed were the marks of your calling. The intensity of the opposition against you was the measure of the assignment upon you. You have felt for your entire life that you were meant for something, that there was a purpose pressing against you from the inside, and you were right. You were always right. That pressure was your destiny straining to be born. And now in this hour, with the armies of the afterlife arrayed around you and the 7 blades of the Archangel drawn on your behalf and the decrees of your freedom ringing through the courts of glory, that destiny is finally breaking through into the world where you can touch it, live it, and become the fullness of what you were made to be, femme. And now I must tell you what the word restoration truly means in the language of the afterlife, for it is far larger than the small thing you have dared to hope for. When you have prayed for return, you prayed for enough. You prayed to simply get back to the place before the loss, to break even, to no longer feel the ache of the gap. But the afterlife does not deal in breaking even. The afterlife deals in overflow. The law that governs the courts of light declares that when the thief is found, he does not merely give back what he took. He repays it many times over, and everything that was stolen from you across the long years is being gathered now with interest, with increase, with a multiplication that will leave you breathless. Count the years that felt devoured, the seasons the locusts ate, the joy that was siphoned away, the opportunities that slipped through your fingers, the love that was withheld, the recognition that never came. The afterlife has counted them too, every single one, and against each entry in that ledger of loss, a repayment has been ordered that dwarfs the original theft. Do not imagine this restoration as a single event, a lone door swinging open. Imagine it as a flood coming through every window of your life at once. In the place where your resources were strained to breaking, where you rationed and stretched and did without and lay awake calculating what you did not have, provision is being routed toward you through channels you cannot yet perceive, from directions you would never think to watch. In the place of your body, where weariness settled into your very bones and pain became so familiar, you forgot what lightness felt like. A renewal is being released, a strength returning to your frame like sap rising in a tree that everyone believed was dead. In the place of your relationships, where you stood among people who could not see you, connections are being drawn toward you across great distances, souls who will recognize you instantly, who will look at you and know you, who will love the very depths that others called too much. And in the place of your heart, the deepest place, the place most ravaged by the years, there is coming a restoration of joy itself, the capacity to feel delight again, to laugh from the belly without the shadow falling, to wake in the morning with something other than dread. This is the restoration most precious of all, because a person can be handed every outward blessing and still remain a prisoner in a joyless soul, and the afterlife will not do half a work in you. It restores the pearly gates and the inner sanctuary alike. It rebuilds the walls and relights the lamp within them. You will feel the return of things you thought had died in you forever: wonder, expectancy, the ability to dream without immediately bracing for disappointment. Yet I must warn you gently, for the enemy of your soul knows that restoration is coming and will fight hardest at the threshold of it. In the very hour that the blessing draws near, you may feel the old heaviness try to return with a strange new fury, the doubts sharpening, the fears whispering that this is all too good to be true, that you should not let yourself believe, that hope will only set you up to be crushed again. This is precisely why understanding the weapons of the spirit realm is no longer optional for you but urgent, because a soul who does not know how to hold the ground it has been given can watch the very blessing it fought for slip away through gates left unguarded. This is what the sacred guide I spoke of makes plain: the 7 blades